You made your way back down, and at this point, well, they are three of the smaller peaks in the Ultra. You are a third of the way done as you guys start
Yeah,
driving out to Catamount. So now at this point, because the drives between Mount Jove and Hovenberg and Cobble Hill, they're all relatively short, 5 minutes or less. So, but now the drive to Catamount is going to be, I don't know, about a 30-minute drive. So now at this point, it's like, now after you've been hiking, you've just climbed 3 mountains, your legs might start to get that like sensation of where they think they're done hiking, but oh, they're so not done hiking. How did that drive to Catamount go for you guys?
I actually enjoyed the drive. I I wasn't driving, obviously, but I think that the drives helped me more than anything because by the time we got back to the car, my feet hurt, my legs were tired from hiking nonstop, and sitting down in the car for 10 minutes or 30 minutes to the next mountain. By the time we got there, I was refreshed. I was ready to hike the next mountain.
Okay,
I can't say for my dad, though, because he was the one driving.
sure. I am the opposite. I am like let's say we're hiking, we hike a high peak or whatever and we're in Keene Valley and I get back to the car and I feel great. I'm like at the end of the day, my feet, legs, everything feels good. Then I sit in the car and the 5 minute drive to Stewarts from a trailhead there to the Stewarts and Keene, my legs are just. And then I get out at Keene and I'm an old man at that point. I just can't even move. So I know for me, as soon as I stop moving, that's when the legs start to tense up. So that's good for you because I hear a lot of people talk about, on ultras in particular, the driving is what locks up their legs and locks up their hips and their joints and stuff. But you're so young. God, I envy you for being so young and doing this. That's amazing. So how did Catamount go? That's definitely a fan favorite of the LP9.
It was beautiful. The trail was amazing. But by that point, honestly, I think it was hitting us a little bit harder than it was because going up the steep part before the tree line, I could definitely feel my pace slowing down
Mm-hmm.
because I was just dragging up Catamount. Because I knew that there was a fake summit, but when we got to tree line, I didn't bother telling my dad because he was just like, you can see the summit. There it is. We just got to get to the top. And I was like, okay. But then I knew deep down that on the map there was definitely a false summit. And so when we got to the top, he was just so confused. And I was like, yeah, I probably knew this was going to happen, but enjoyed it while it lasted. But it was definitely fun to scramble up the rocky parts of Catamount, and it was so cool. It was like sunrise time at that point.
Great. Now, were you guys on the summit when the sunrise came up, or throughout that hike the sun rose?
It was throughout the time that we were hiking up, the sun had eventually came up, but it was still morning, so it was still kind of like fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very cool. How did your dad feel on this one? So those 4 mountains in one day are, they're a big enough day. So how was he feeling at this point on Catamount once you were at the summit?
So I feel like we were a little bit like opposite because when I just saw the tree line and I just started going like I should probably restart that. I was dragging up the Catamount until we got to the tree line and I just like passed him and just started going and I could tell that he was definitely struggling, but I was just like had like a second wind just booking it up the summit, just like running up these like scrambles, and it was fun for me. But I feel like we had kind of like switched when I was struggling, and I had gotten a second wind, and he had it, and now he was slowing down.
That's the beauty of having a hiking partner. That's wonderful that worked out that way because you can both pull the other one along when each of you need that. Very nice. So then
Yeah.
Catamount. So now the sun's up, and I always joke on this podcast that miles in the dark don't count. So now at this point, you've hiked 3 mountains in the dark. Now it's daytime. So now it must feel like to you it's a whole brand new day. Oh, I forgot I already hiked 4 mountains today because now the sun's up. So it feels like it's a totally new day. So now you're in Wilmington and you're heading over to Bear Den Mountain, right at Whiteface Mountain. Take us through your trip up Bear Den.
So Bear Den was, compared to Catamount, was super easy. I don't know. The mileage is pretty similar, but we just flew up Bear Den like it was nothing. Bear Den went by really quickly, and when we got to the top, we knew we'd gone so fast. We just took like a really long break up there, and we filmed a video that you probably saw.
Yep.
And my feet really hurt, but they were still going strong. So
at that point, you're halfway done now. So how did that feel when you were at the summit?
Yeah, I knew when we got to the summit that that was the official halfway point, and it felt like we had gone way farther than halfway, but, you know, the numbers don't lie, so.
Mm-hmm. Have you done any of these mountains before?
No, these were all for me.
Very cool. So at this point in the day, what was your favorite by this halfway point of what you had hiked at that point?
By then, my favorite was probably Cobble Hill, just because I had a lot of fun hiking it.
Sure. I wouldn't have expected that choice, but very cool. It's a great mountain. Or great hill, whatever you want to call it. I enjoy it very much. So you're on top of Bear Den. How are you guys feeling at this point physically? So Catamount was a little tough. And now you're on Bear Den. You're at that halfway point. So mentally and physically, talk to us about what you guys were feeling like at that point.
So mentally, I was feeling great. I felt like I could just go do anything. Nothing was stopping me at this point, but it was really hot. And so we were sweating a lot. And by the time we got back to the car, we had decided that we were going to stop at Stewarts to get some like ice cold drinks because it was just humid. Physically, you know, my legs, they were definitely tired, but not tired enough to make me slow down yet. So.
And how about Dad? How was he feeling?
I don't know. I think he was fine.
So he was probably fine enough if you didn't notice he was slowing down or anything. Because at this point you're halfway. It's a big point into the day. It's a big milestone for the day. So you guys head down Bear Den. So you're now over the hump. You're over that midway point. I assume everything going down Bear Den was okay. So then you had the drive back to Pitch Off, which again, at this point is a decent sized drive, but that's got to be, 20 plus minutes, 25 minutes actually probably to Pitch Off from Bear Den. How did that drive go? Did your body shut down at all? Did it feel great? You probably loved it. Did it go well for Dad? Take us through that.
When we got to Pitch Off, my legs definitely didn't want to hike anymore. Mm-hmm. They definitely were exhausted and they were confused why we were still hiking. And then when we got out, I kind of just gotten used to sitting after those 20 minutes I think we were in the car. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely a struggle to get back out and head up the next mountain.
Yeah, that tends to be the trend, and what I hear from people. It's like you get to that trailhead, especially at this point in the day, later into the day after you've already hiked like a bunch of the smaller mountains, maybe one of the bigger ones, and then you get to the next trailhead and you're like, I don't need to get out of this car right now. No one's making me get out of this car right now. It's so much easier to just say, I'm just going to stay in the car. I'm good. I had a nice day. But congratulations to both of you for doing it. So you went to Pitch Off. Did you hike that via the Cascade trailhead or did you do the Pitch Off East trailhead?
We did via the Cascade Pitch Off.
Okay, cool,
trailhead.
Cool. So how'd that mountain go?
It didn't go well for both of us. It was pretty terrible.
All right, terrible. Know. Okay, here we go.
It was nothing went wrong except for the fact that we just went so slow and it was just so hard to just willing ourselves to take another step. I don't even know really why. It was just like a normal mountain. In retrospect, it was just a mountain that you had to climb, but it just took us forever and it was so hard. When we got to the top, I didn't want to go down. I was just and it didn't help that there was this 8-year-old kid coming down when we were struggling so hard, and he just gave us this nasty look, and he just said, "You're almost there. You're almost there. You're this close to just turning around," and you guys get a comment like that.
Sure. I can picture it. Yes, totally. How long into the hike up Pitch Off? So you guys said you went slowly, and it was kind of a grind to get to the top. how long into that mountain did it take for your legs to kind of like start moving again, get the, the rust off the joints from the long drive? Or was it pretty much that whole mountain felt that way?
It probably up till the Balancing Rocks trailhead, which is almost up the entire thing.
Yep.
When we got there, I kind of just like willed myself, you just gotta, we're almost there, just keep going. And by the time we were there, going down was a bit better.
Cool. Very nice. And at that point, as you're coming down, you I assume in your head, okay, so I got pitch off. We have 3 more, and those last 3 are like, that's the final chunk. You're on to like the final phase of the LP9. So you made it back down pitch off. Now, when you got back to your car, were you feeling better, the same, or worse than when you got out of the car to start pitch off?
I don't know. Mentally, I was feeling worse because I knew we still had to do 3 more, and one of those includes Hurricane, which I was really dreading all day. But physically, I think I was fine, but I was tired, so I had a 5-hour energy, so that helped a lot. I was definitely a little bit hyper going up Hurricane.
Okay, cool. It's also like the best mountain in the Adirondack Park, in my opinion. Or I guess I should take that back. I think it's the best hike in the Adirondacks when you're just going to hike one mountain all around. You, of course, are doing 9 mountains today, so you might not feel the same way. But I do encourage you to revisit it on a fresh day sometime. But anyway, so you go from Lake Placid, and now it's the big drive to Keene Valley and almost Elizabethtown to get to the Hurricane Trailhead. So, which is again another big drive. So I would have to think that your legs may have tensed up a little bit in the car, or maybe Dad's legs did. But take us through that. How did that go? And then you got to the Hurricane Trailhead, and take us through that hike.
Yeah, so we got back into the car, and I was I don't know why, but I was dreading Hurricane because I feel like I had just gotten the rep that it was just going to be a really long, hard mountain to get to the top. But when we got there, I was buzzing because I had almost a whole 5-hour energy. And so we had started down Hurricane, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, it was probably one of my favorites because I don't know, I don't remember anything from that trail except for the summit and except for this group that we passed almost at the beginning that didn't even catch up to us until we were like halfway down. So that was the only thing I remember from that one.
That must have been a morale pick-me-up, knowing like, okay, we're not going that slow if we're doing, we're passing people, and like we're clearly still on like a good pace at that point.
Yeah.
And there's the fire tower at the top, so that's awesome.
It was one of my favorite summits out of the day, probably my favorite hike. We met a summit steward for the first time. I had never met one before. And we spent probably too much time on Hurricane. We spent the most time out of any mountain on Hurricane, just talking to people and hanging out because it was just really nice up there. It was fun.
Very nice. What type of conversations did you have with people at the top? Did you let them know that you're hiking 9 mountains that day, or did you keep that to yourself?
Oh, definitely. We definitely told people if they wanted to. If they were interested, we would let them know.
Sure.
And they always were interested if they.
Cool. Very cool. So then you how'd the trip down Hurricane go? Because at this point, too, you're at the summit of Hurricane, so like the big work is done because on a normal day, Big Crow and Baxter are just gimmies. Of course, at this point in the day, you've already hiked 7 mountains, so not so much. But you are definitely on that like final push. So take us through the trip down Hurricane.
The trip down Hurricane was fast and definitely not very hard in terms of like the rest of the day that we've been doing. And my dad kept telling me, I feel like he had guessed what was happening somehow, but he kept telling me that we had to just like get back to the trailhead as fast as possible, and I was so confused. But as soon as we got back to the trailhead, because we weren't going to stop, we were just going to keep going to Big Crow that was at the same trailhead. And as soon as we got back, I just had some water, and it just started downpouring as soon as we got back. and we had just started heading up Big Crow, and it was absolutely torrential downpour.